Hello, this is Sarah Brosh. Welcome back to my channel. So this video, before I get started, I just want to say please subscribe to my YouTube channel, like my videos, comment on my videos, share my videos. It would mean the absolute world to me. And also please donate to my legal fund. And I will have all of my fundraising links below. My wonderful attorneys at Randazza will be back in court next month in September 2022 to continue fighting to restore due process and equal protection at Yale. Alright, so this video is me doing a practice run of my paper presentation, which I'll be presenting at the University of Vienna next week at Social Ontology 2022. It's the International Social Ontology Society's annual conference, and I leave for Vienna on Thursday, and I am just so thrilled and excited. I can't wait. So I had already posted my slides, and I actually just did a practice run, and I was going to post that YouTube video, but I didn't love the way it turned out, so I think I'll just do a practice run with this video, and I'll post this one. So basically my slides, I think, actually don't really need to be streamlined very much, and I think actually I'm pretty good to go by just sticking pretty true to the slides. I'm supposed to be presenting for 15 to 20 minutes, and I think I came in at like 20 or 21 minutes with the last practice run, and that was me elaborating just a little bit. So I think I'll just stay true to the slides that I have, and I should be pretty much good to go. Okay, so I think I'll go ahead and get started. So hello, this is Sarah Brosh. Thank you so much for attending my paper presentation, and I will be giving a talk on a non-ideal account of meeting based upon a modified Lewisian Hartian account of social conventions. So I embarked on this project of developing a modified Lewisian Hartian account of social conventions, which I presented this first of my then 3 Yale PhD dissertation papers at Social Ontology 2018 and also Social Ontology 2020. And then I began this project, I embarked on this project because I saw Hart, HLA Hart, as making a fatal mistake in his legal theory, his theory of a legal system, in his work, The Concept of Law. And I presented that paper in the second of my 3 Yale PhD dissertation papers at Social Ontology 2021. And this is the third of my 3 Yale PhD dissertation papers, which is the non-ideal account of meaning based on this modified account of social conventions. So I realized that I could use this account of social conventions to fix what I saw as Hart's fatal mistake in The Concept of Law, and then also to fix what I see as being a number of existing problems with current accounts of reference and sense. And so Hart devises this beautiful legal system as a union of primary social conventions of obligation and secondary social conventions of authority, wherein it is the citizenry who confer authority upon their public officials, who are then constrained by the primary social conventions that the citizenry does or will accept. And then Hart strips the citizenry of their own legal system because his obligatory character of law, which he sees as being an essential feature of social conventions, or social rules as he refers to them, that comprise a legal system, which is a system of these social rules, really social conventions, that this essential feature, the way in which Hart captures this essential feature of the obligatory character of law, demands unanimity of acceptance of the social rules, of the primary duty imposing social rules of obligation. So this demand that Hart makes, that is the unanimity of acceptance by the entirety of the social group whose legal system it is, opens up Pandora's box, and this is Hart's fatal mistake in the concept of law. So a modified Lewisian Hartian account of social conventions returns a legal system to the citizenry and allows for evolution and devolution, as well as dissent, theoretical disagreement, and pluralism, while retaining this quasi-obligatory character of law, or as close as to an obligatory character of law as Hart can hope to capture. So I realized that this account of social conventions could be applied to an account of meaning to solve a number of issues with existing accounts of both sense and reference. So let's talk for a bit about this modified Lewisian Hartian account of social conventions, which I'm going to apply to a non-ideal account of meaning. So as in Hart's legal system in the concept of law, a social convention is a system of a primary social convention of obligation and a secondary social convention of authority. The social conventions are Lewisian social conventions, as in David Lewis's convention. In other words, they are rational choice-based and game theoretic. So they're Hartian because they are a system of a primary social convention of obligation and a secondary social convention of authority, and they are Lewisian because they are Lewisian social conventions. They are rational choice-based and game theoretic. So all social coordination requires an authority to overcome the risk dominance of the status quo position. And one of the novel things that I'm doing is I'm incorporating the role that a practical authority plays. So my authority is a Rawlsian authority. It is someone with the power to change the protected reasons of another, which is, in other words, which is to make salient one primary Lewisian social convention or another. An authority is assumed, authority is always assumed, and then it is conferred. And this cuts off the infinite regress that you would otherwise expect. And it's also important to note that authorities don't grow on trees. Authorities are people who are foresighted and risk tolerant, and these persons may be few and far between in a population. And this is why coordination problems often go unsolved. Because the authority is necessarily a free-riding defector, so they are not party to the social convention, they are not socially obligated to conform to the social convention, and this is necessary because they have to be able to choose to make salient one or another primary Lewisian social convention, and so that they will be able to move the social group to alternate social conventions, Lewisian social conventions. So once the citizenry converges upon the Lewisian social convention made salient by the practical authority, the social group rests upon an equilibrium point. The social convention is a step public social good, as in Hugh Ward's 3 Men in a Boat, 2 must row. And so now, because we're resting at an equilibrium point with a free-riding defector authority, and because the social convention is a step public social good, we have now severed Hart's necessary connection between obligatory character and unanimity of acceptance. So now we can have subsocial groups, we can have evolution and devolution, we can have theoretical disagreement, and we can still have a quasi-obligatory character, because there is a single rational thing to do for those party to the social convention, which is continue to conform, while the free-riding defector authority has no incentive to do anything other but continue to free ride, because then they fare better. And the reason why those party to the social convention there is a single rational thing for them to do, which approaches this quasi-obligatory character, because the single rational thing to do is to continue to conform to the social convention. And the reason why is because otherwise, if they unilaterally deviate, then the social group will collapse back to the status quo. So as Margaret Gilbert stated in Social Convention Revisited, a social convention is social group constituting in and of itself, which provides incentive to the authorities to assume authority. The social group is itself a step public social good, and it allows the social group to move to alternate Lewisian social conventions. And basically, it's good to be king, right? It's good to be the authority because you get to free ride. You are not socially obligated to conform to the social convention yourself, and you get to move the social group to alternate Lewisian social conventions. And it's good to be a member of a social group because then, as a social group, you can move to alternate Lewisian social conventions, hopefully more optimal, but you might be in a situation where you actually need to move to a less optimal Lewisian social convention, and you can do that as well. So now let's talk about what is wrong with existing. Let's talk about the first sense of meaning, which is reference, which is an object or an extension set of objects. And let's talk about the issues that I find with current theories of reference that I'm trying to resolve. So with description theories of reference, such as Bertrand Russell's and John Searle's, proper names and general terms are not rigid designators. They don't have indexicality. They don't pick out the same referent in all possible worlds in which they designate. And the other problem is that we have pre-theoretical intuitions that we use linguistic terms without explicit beliefs. I can have no explicit beliefs about a referent and still be able to use a proper name or a general term competently. I can still be a competent speaker of language. I can still use linguistic terms competently, even if I have no explicit beliefs about a referent, or even if I have all false beliefs about a referent, because I'm going to get to that next. But that's one of the problems with description theories of references. It doesn't allow that, obviously. And so with Saul Kripke's causal theory of reference, the problem is that there's no evolution. Kripke has a primitive reference or an initial baptism, and then he demands a reference-preserving chain of references all the way back to this primitive reference, this initial baptism. There's no evolution. And then the big problem with that, which Gareth Evans noted, is that the truth conditions of my statement, which are dictated by this primitive reference, may have absolutely nothing to do with the things I'm speaking of, the things I care about in the present, in my current sociocultural context. And then with Gareth Evans' causal description theory of reference, he did make big improvements on existing theories of reference, but he still has problems because Evans recognizes that we need evolution, but he does little more than evoke evolving social conventions, which he was right to do so, but he basically stops after he says the words evolving social conventions. And then his rigid designator, what he thinks is a rigid designator, is a dominant source of a body of information that a social group has, but not an individual speaker, but it still is not a rigid designator. And I show this fully in my paper. It's no more a rigid designator than it is a body of descriptions or a description. And then also, even for Gareth Evans, even though he is very aware of this problem, I show fully in the paper how with his causal description theory of reference, it still is the case where in some cases, the truth conditions of my statements become severed from the things that I care about in the present, in my current socio-cultural context. Okay, so then it follows logically that these are the essential features that we want captured by a non-ideal account of reference. So we want to use proper names and general terms as rigid designators. We have pre-theoretical intuitions that we use proper names and general terms as rigid designators. We want to be able to be competent speakers of a language and to use linguistic terms, general terms, and proper names competently without having any explicit beliefs about a referent or having all false beliefs about a referent. We should still be able to use those linguistic terms competently to refer to the referent as our social group refers. So we want our reference, which is Kripke's initial baptism primitive reference, to evolve over time. And we want to stand in a causal relation. Gareth Evans and Saul Kripke were both correct to incorporate a causal relation between the speaker and the referent, but we want our causal relation to our referent to be such that the truth conditions of our statements never become severed from what we care about in the present, in our current sociocultural context, either across possible worlds or across time. So I think we can get everything we want by a new theory of reference, a non-ideal theory of reference, which I'm calling a causal ostensive definition theory of reference, employing a modified Lewisian Hartian account of social conventions. So I think we can have everything that I just talked about. I think we can have everything that we want out of a theory of reference with this new theory of reference. So we can have Kripke's initial baptism primitive reference, which is an identity statement between two rigid designators, which is appointing with authority. So again, authority is important. And so this is a naming authority making salient a primary Lewisian social convention by pointing either literally or figuratively. So this gives us our rigid designator. Then we can have Kripke's primitive reference, and we can have it evolve over time. And this is because this is a step public social good with a free writing defector, the naming authority, and we can move between alternate Lewisian primary Lewisian social conventions, and we can also evolve over time because we have our sub-social groups waxing and waning over time. And so this is a modified Lewisian Hartian social convention, which gives us all of these possibilities. So we don't need to have any explicit beliefs about the referent, and this is the beauty of conforming to the social convention and referring as our social group refers, referring as our naming authority refers. We only need to refer as our social group's naming authority refers, and we conform to the Lewisian social convention. And this is why I say that being a competent user of a language is much more a matter of know-how than know that. And I also think it's much more a matter of know-how than know that than has often been recognized. So because we wear the mantle of the naming authority's authority, because we have conferred this authority upon the naming authority, and so when we conform to the social convention, when we refer as our social group refers, when we refer as the naming authority refers, we wear the mantle of the naming authority's authority. So now, because this naming authority, that primitive reference, is an ostensive definition with a demonstrative reference, it's an I, it's an indexical, on one side of an identity statement, and a that, the demonstrative that, on the other side of the identity statement. We stand in the ostensive definition relation to the referent, and this is the most intimate causal relation. And so to use a name is to bestow a name if we have the authority to still bestow a name. And then finally, I just want to talk briefly about the second sense of meaning, which is sense or linguistic concept. And this is also a modified Lewisian Hartian social convention. So when the naming social convention arises, the naming authority proclaims the essential features that define the boundaries of the extension set of the referent. This is the birth of the linguistic concept associated with a term. These proclaimed essential features, either intrinsic or superficial, are the linguistic concept. They are Putnam's stereotype. So a secondary power conferring social convention of authority arises as well to identify the keepers of these linguistic concepts. A linguistic concept is a social convention. It is a social institution, a step public social good. So a linguistic concept associated with a term often co-evolves with the extension set of that term, but it can come apart. That was almost perfect timing. Oh, I'm so excited. That's the end of my talk, and I'm so excited. I think that went really well, and I'm so excited, and I think that's gonna go really good. Okay, great. Thank you so much for watching. I'm gonna have all of my fundraising links below. Please donate to my legal fund. My wonderful attorneys at Randazza will be back in court next month, September 2022, and they are going to be fighting to restore due process and equal protection at Yale. And please subscribe to my YouTube channel, like, comment, share, and I love you all so much. Have a great night, and I'll talk to you soon. Okay, bye.